Turbo Overkill is a high-speed, retro-inspired first-person shooter developed by Trigger Happy Interactive, and it was published by Apogee Entertainment. Now, I picked it up yesterday when it shadow dropped, but it's more than just your run-of-the-mill old-school shooter. It merges fast-paced action with cyberpunk aesthetics and clearly draws inspiration from the classics like Doom, Quake and Duke Nukem, while also incorporating a few modern mechanics. And a couple of little surprises, like vehicles. We'll take a look at all of that good stuff, of course performance as well, in both docked and handheld, and the different control methods available. Is Turbo Overkill then going to use its double-barrel shotgun to blow away the competition, or is this one firing blanks? Well, my name's Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp, now let's find out. Let's start with story. It follows Johnny Turbo, who is a cybernetically enhanced bounty hunter. He's basically returned to his hometown, which is known as Paradise, to find that it's been overrun by a rogue AI called Sin.
I am infinite, beyond the slow humbling of time.
See what they did there. The city is absolutely crawling with biomechanical monstrosities and a bunch of heavily armed mercenaries. He takes on the role of what's known as a cleaner. Now, in the absence of a mop and bucket, I think we all know what that entails. And he does it with extreme prejudice. As well as this narrative backing, scattered throughout the stages, there's also audio recordings that serve to flesh out the storyline. They provide insight into the world without slowing the action down.
Its unchecked control poses a severe threat to TerraTech's market position.
I think it's a good way of handling it, particularly in a first-person shooter. At its heart, Turbo Overkill is all about fast-paced speed and being super aggressive. On the Nintendo Switch, the first thing you know that I look for are gyro controls, and they are not here, which is a big miss. There are lots of people, as you'll see from the comments, who simply will not play a first-person shooter on Switch without them. If, however, you're not one of them, there are a couple of issues there as well. The controls currently don't let you change the sensitivity, or at least they do, but it doesn't bind when you save. With that said, with a Pro controller it is still manageable, but it's something they're going to have to look into. You can slide, double jump, air dash, and you can even wall run to stay mobile while you're in combat. What I haven't mentioned so far though is that the main protagonist has a chainsaw leg. That is awesome. It allows you to tear through enemies while sliding towards them, moving along at a breakneck pace, and that is facilitated with a nice selection of weapons. They also have unique secondary firing modes, but you'll need to purchase mods and then chip those into your weapons for that to unlock. As well as guns, you also get secondary abilities like micro missiles, fired from a hand cannon. These auto-target enemies, and man, they look awesome. The game uses a weapon wheel system that's accessed by holding right on the D-pad. That slightly slows gameplay as well, making it easier to choose what's next. There are a couple of unusual things, or at least out of the ordinary for the genre. The first of them is the ability to augment your character with a variety of Deus Ex-like upgrades that you slot into different parts of the body. Now, the acquisition of these is done in a couple of different ways. You've got your game's currency that's constantly being earned when you're killing different types of enemies. Some of them actually explode in a shower of it. And yeah, this is not a game for kids. You'll be seeing that insta-gib goodness all over the place as bodies explode left, right and center. And it is a big old game. You're looking at over 20 levels spread over 3 different chapters, and have got some quality stage layouts that are quite non-linear. They gradually open and they'll see you looping back on yourself, often requiring revisits to areas to complete objectives, with exploration being encouraged with hidden cassette tapes as well as mod chips, and these TerraTech crates that reward you with free augments if you can find the hidden key. Now, it's all well and good having a massive variety of weapons. It's worthless if you've got nothing to shoot at. But of course, Turbo Overkill's got you sorted. There are loads of them. Some reminded me a bit of Serious Sam's headless screaming suicide bombers, and they're really designed so that you can use that sliding chainsaw leg to cut them down. Others are a little more mech-like, and there are drones where you have to jump on their backs and shoot the brains out of them. There's quite a bit of repetition that's to be expected within the genre, but there's also a good variety of different enemy types. As far as difficulty, Turbo Overkill has 5 different difficulty modes, with nods to classics like Wolfenstein, or at least the new ones. And in fact, you will find references to other shooters throughout this game, but there's a lot of detail and quality here. Like every time you get a new weapon, there's an animation tied to it that just gives it that little bit more personalized quality. The nods back to things like classic Quake go a bit deeper as well, and I'm not gonna lie, there's a bit of Unreal Tournament in here. There's a gun, for example, called the Waster. That's like the game's shotgun, but it can be modified to basically fire like a charged round that can also act to give you rocket jumps. You can use that to reach hidden areas, and of course there is the classic rocket launcher as well, but everything just comes together so nicely in terms of level design and general layout. Sometimes you'll have things like split objectives, and they'll be marked in the center of the screen or with a compass, and you can approach those in the order that you want. It also starts to gradually get more and more insane, introducing things like rips in space-time that you have to jump through, and of course, I already mentioned vehicles. There are a few different vehicles that you can ride. You've got the hover bike, which is used for like high-speed chase sequences, while the car offers you aerial combat with mounted guns. That flying segment reminded me of G-Police from '97 on the PlayStation. That was a quality game. For me, they're a welcome addition. They're not just tacked on. It's like the developers were really trying to create an experience that they would have done back in the day if they were developers around that time, rather than simply creating something that plays on your nostalgia for a shooter. Its biggest limitation as far as gameplay goes, though, comes from those controls. It's going to be interesting, isn't it, with Switch 2 to see the implementation of mouse mode. But for us right now, gyro for first person, it's gotta be done. Or at least some form of variable sensitivity, so that like when you hold the trigger down, it halves that sensitivity. I'm sure there are lots of methods that developers could use. From a purely gameplay perspective, this is a brilliant first person shooter. However, it is impacted by that. Gameplay scores 17 out of 20. Those controls, they score 14 out of 20. Visually, we've got a combination of retro 3D with modern lighting effects. It does create quite a stylized cyberpunk aesthetic, and you've got things like the skyboxes, which have a classic hand-painted look. And when I say hand-painted, I mean they look flipping budget, but they really do evoke that 90s first-person shooter design. The rain effects are also quite cool. When you look up at the sky, they'll interact with the visor. Animations for enemies are okay, but it's those visceral, inside-out explosions that look the best, and that's what you really want. The guns looking solid and producing a solid effect. You will see a little graphical jankiness, such as the fog turning into a flat texture when you go below it on one stage, but for pure cinematic flair, I think the game achieves what it sets out to achieve. Running at 30 frames per second, straight away that's going to be disappointing to some players. I do feel with a bit of optimization they could potentially get higher than that, but certain weapons like the flamethrower will cause severe slowdowns, and even some audio stuttering. In the end, I ended up just not using that weapon for that reason. Oh, the soundtrack is so good. There are some memorable moments. There are nice details as well, like the gun vendors and other machines having their own unique background music, and the weapons sound delightfully chunky. In handheld, I did prefer playing this way. I think shrunk down, the game looks a little nicer. I'm using one of those grip things that you can stick the Switch into, and it has Hall effect sticks, which are a little more accurate. And this one can also be docked. It's got like a HDMI out on the top. Anyway, I digress. Just playing in handheld with the OLED, it looks great. Visuals and performance combined, they score 15 out of 20. Sound and audio scores 17 out of 20. Turbo Overkill set me back £16.75, which I was pretty pleased with. It's a very long game, but it's not long and drawn out, it's quality. You're looking at about 24 levels, loads of boss fights, those 3 large chapters, but there's also different content that I haven't spoken about. From the main menu, you can access what amounts to a horde mode. You're trying to survive for as long as you can with waves and waves of enemies approaching. Just on its own, it's very addictive and really enjoyable, but there's also arcade mode in there as well that offers its own playability and the old classic arcade experience. There's even, I think, an optional boss fight. The only thing it doesn't offer is multiplayer. But there is a demo of this one, so you can go check it out right now and see what you think. The download is 7.8 gigs, and as for physical, I haven't got a clue. I hope so. I'd like to pick this one up actually, but I do think it offers really good value despite a few issues. Value scores 18 out of 20. Turbo Overkill has the potential to be one of the top first-person shooters on Switch. It's fantastic on PC where you can control it precisely, but it suffers a little on Switch as a result of not having things like gyro. Still, it's very good, and if you're a fan of the genre and aren't too fussed with that one issue, the other little quirks can be overlooked. It gets a SwitchUp score of 81%. Let me know in the comments, is this one you've seen had dropped on the eShop? Did you not know anything about it? Or maybe you played it over on PC. Thanks to our Patreons, our members, all of you that enjoy the content, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!